I, I kind of look at it. They're stocks, so I can look at them, but I certainly can't pretend that I'm an expert at it. But one of the best shorts is Humacyte. So these guys make this like fake graft thing. It's a vessel, so it basically allows um, blood to
This is
flow.
me, bro.
Oh, okay, okay,
This is me.
okay. Go ahead, go ahead. Do you want to say anything, or do you?
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. Like, I just think that they're not gonna get the approval. Like, the latest.
Oh, no, no, no. Set up the table for
The,
people who have no idea what you're talking about. You got to set the table.
okay, good point. Yeah. So Humacyte's a company that makes an artificial vein. They are trying to. I mean, she's like an actual academic. Like, she's been doing tissue engineering and this kind of thing for a very long
This is
time, but she's trying
this
to
is the
spin it out.
CEO.
And she's the CEO, and she's trying to spin it out into a real company. She's already managed to upgrade herself into a Yale faculty position based off of her research and also running a company, which is something that it always looks good. In the past year, since they filed their BLA, so they could try to get an approval at the FDA, her husband, not her, but her husband has sold $20 million worth of the shares that he has on the
Two
board.
zero.
20
Not
bills. So yeah.
bad. Not bad.
I mean, it's not everything, but like they also never bought. They never bought back in. It just sold a lot
Trying
of
to
money. But anyway,
diversify.
obviously, yeah, they know how to bank.
I know. I gotta pay.
That's what her
I
husband
got a
did.
tax bill. What's your tax bill from selling the stock? The more
That's
I
a
sell, the
little.
more I have to
Kids got
pay.
to go to private school. It's yeah. So the actual company though, like I think that they like in my opinion tried to make a good go at it, but like at the end of the day, the clinical trials just don't look good. I mean, like the only clinical trial that they did to get an approval has only 30-day data available,
Well, this is a lot
and they
like
refused.
this is a lot like cassava
They,
in the sense that like, and I've seen this in my own professional career. It's like if you have a publicly traded company, it's an automatic ATM machine for you, where you can just take salary and options out, and it's not like a private company where your options are very speculative and the market for these stocks, like you issue the options, every now and then, like a broken clock's right twice a day, and you get to exercise your options and sell them and make some money. And even if that doesn't happen, you're on the board, you get perks, you just drain the company for years. It doesn't matter if your product works or not, and you're happy. Every now and then, maybe your product will work and you get really rich. But in general, over your 20-year career, you might get lucky like that once as you hop from company to company, and it's really disgusting. Humacyte's problem is they are trying to make a graft or an artificial vein when there are plastic veins out there, and the plastic veins cost around $1,000, and they're actually trying to charge what are they trying to charge it?
like 25 or 30 grand.
Right. So they haven't proven that their protein-based product, cell-based product, or I guess it's acellular technically, they haven't
Yeah, it's acellular.
yeah, they haven't proven it was once cellular. They haven't proven that their product is any better than the plastic product, which is $1,000, and they want people to pay $25,000 for it. And if you know anything about hospital sales of medical devices, it's really hard. It's like the hardest type of sale to make because you actually have to prove that your product is going to be useful and save money, because otherwise the hospital is like, yeah, we're going to get screwed because we're not going to get reimbursed. I think it's a well-known fact in the United States, a third of all hospital admissions never pay a dollar. So, if somebody comes in and they want one of these things, you got to cough up 25K and pray that it works, which means that you got to make it like 50K for everybody else. And then insurance has to pay for it. And they're going to say, well, use the $1,000 fucking plastic one. If there's no proof that it's better, why should I pay $50,000 for this thing? So this is a great short. Like the product literally doesn't work. And it's a 600, 700 million market cap. They don't have much cash left. Even if they get FDA approval, which they've been very shady about, like mentioning, like,
Yeah,
yeah, you can tell
the
that story
PDUFA
better.
was delayed. The PDUFA was supposed to be for mid-August, and then it just for no reason, apparently, for literally no reason. Like they just said we need more time. It has been delayed, and it's now November. And some of us that are, short the company think that they might get a decision this week because this is actually the week that is now exactly 10 months from the date that the BLA was accepted. So they should have this should have been the original PDUFA date, the date
Right.
that they get the decision on, but they had a priority review, so it's supposed to be a little bit earlier, but that didn't happen. And then now the FDA has been kicking, well, apparently the FDA hasn't said anything to them, and they haven't even tried to get clarity from the FDA.
Usually
So we
in that situation, usually from what I recall, you just get the CRL. But there was also this. I have to, in the spirit of full disclosure, there was this really mysterious approval that did appear on the FDA site, and everyone's trying to figure out how to read into that because it was quickly taken down, but it was approved on the site. And in my experience, that's usually means something. You don't just get accidentally, you know, kind of accidentally get listed for FDA approval. So it's very very odd. So, but I contend that even if they do get approval, this product will never be used, and it honestly would be better to rip the Band-Aid off, give them approval, and you'll measure revenue for this company in the thousands, not in the millions.
Yeah, because like I mean, even in the trauma indication, even so, like I think that like there is this magical super niche instance where like it could be useful because
You're
the
being
standard
too
of care
kind.
isn't bad.
You're being too kind.
I know, but like it's like if I'm gonna give them something and I'm willing to give them some ground, it's that there's this like 2% of the population where it's like okay, we have an infection, their arms blown off, their legs are blown off too, and they can't get the vein out of the leg to do the graft, so they're like okay, there's pus, like we can't use plastic, we can't harvest the vein. In that
Why can't you
instance,
use the plastic?
if it's already infected, plastic is pretty good at making that infection
I see.
worse. So like one of the surgeons described it this way. He's like, if it's plastic on pus, then it's really like it's a non-starter. They just don't even want to do that surgery. And so in this very rare instance, okay, like you've already got this open wound, you already tried something else, it failed. Now the wound's infected.
Well,
We can't use plastic.
that does not sound so bad, because as an expert in extremely expensive niche situations, those can be very, very profitable. So if you take,
I think that there's a room for that, but they didn't run the trial for that.
there is that little fact. Yes, you do have to run the
There's like the
trial.
fact that yeah, they tried to run this trial on 72 patients, and then they just decided, oh yeah, like we're supposed to run this on thoracic and extremity patients, so like the chest area was supposed to be included, like the upper shoulder as well as your arms and your legs. But then they decided, that shoulder data like didn't really look good, so we're just going to do an extremity data. So now instead of having 72, you have 52 because they decided that data didn't look good. So now we're reducing that label. And, like I said, it's patients with life or limb threatening injuries. It's not, they already had some other trial, they had some other solution and that failed. And now we're deciding to fall back. Like they're not doing second line here. They're trying to claim first line essentially. And
Yeah,
I,
this
and
stuff.
they didn't run a trial for that. They didn't do
It's
that.
it's really funny because a long, long time ago, 18 years ago, I was involved with a company called Northfield Labs, which didn't last very long. They were making a blood substitute called polyheme, and we were short the stock, and we were right. Polyheme did not serve as an artificial blood substitute. The idea of a universal artificial blood is a really good idea, and I do think it's actually possible. It would be very, very helpful for trauma. But these trauma trials are really hard to run because, like, you basically have to run them from the emergency room and you have to run them from the ambulance, and it's pretty hard. It's very, very difficult. And
To catch people, like in that instance, you mean,
would you like
and to be equipped for it.
sign informed consent? You're half conscious. I mean, it's really
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we want to run an experiment on you. How do you feel about that? You with one arm? It's pretty tricky.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't blame them that much, but it reminds me of that situation. But also the FDA has to stand firm on something. They can't just under this idea you could basically make your product out of sugar and or silly straw or something like that. One of those sugar straws in the candy store. And
Yeah,
under that framework, you'd get approval. So just, oh well, it's really hard. These patients have no options. our product is, at least it's something. Yes, sir, but your product is the sour straw. It's meant to give out to
Yeah.
kids in Halloween, not to use in surgeries. Yeah, but they don't have anything. You can make that argument and it would stand up just the same. So I do think like they deserve a trial, and you know, it's I think the FDA is wrestling with that right now. Like,
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like it's just that, there's no they're not really doing there's no historical control. Like they cite one and then it's like a single, it's not even a real study. Like it's like an observational like account of like this woman in like 2015 that like studied 15 patients that came in and they gave them a plastic like temporary graft, and that's what they're trying to compare it against.
yeah,
But if you compare it against the standard of care, you know, it's a 90% success rate 8 years later. Like they still have the same vein and it's working like 8 fucking years later.
it's
And that's
look,
a really good solution.
it's a monster short, and it's basically free money. But at the end of the day,
Anyway, yeah.
like, it's just one stock, and it's in my portfolio as a short. So I mean, I'm happy with it, and I think it's going to be pretty ugly. Um, whether or not they get approval. One of the things they could have done is a contemporaneous control, kind of no treatment group. Because if there is no treatment for these patients, you basically say, okay, I can't be doing them harm by just observing them, right? So,
Sure.
there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with doing something like that and just saying, okay, here's my outcome. Even if that's survival, even if it's descriptive, like it's okay to have best supportive care as a group, as long as you're like doing patients at the same time and the same sites, you can get a sense for whether or not you're harming them, because you don't know if you're harming them without actually comparing them to something. And again, this is like basic common sense, but it tends to get defied in this weird world where people feel like, let me read these 3 paragraphs. Aha, yes, now I know. And I couldn't be happier, because there's so much shit that's um, trading at these ridiculous premiums when there's good stuff that's trading at discounts. And it's like a biotech investor dream come true. But the problem is, again, many people do not want to short anymore. They've been too burned. Stocks never went down. There's a lot of situations where uh, the GameStop kind of like phenomenon where you're short a stock and the stock goes up like 100x, and you're sitting there wondering what the f happened. That's happened too many times for like the institutions to want to short, and it's sort of become this like lost art. And I think it's a great opportunity. The fact that there's like 3 or 4 funds left that will brave the seas and navigate, against the market. I mean, I know a friend's fund that's still very actively shorting, and they became billionaires doing this exact strategy, and almost became too big for these things to matter anymore. But it's a pretty solid profit center. I mean, every year there's a Humacyte, a Cassava, or 2 or 3 of them, if you have the bandwidth and the staff, where you can make a 50 to 100% return in relatively quick order. And the actual notional amount of money you can make is somewhere between 5 to 15 or 20 million every year reliably. That's not such a bad gig, and it's fascinating stuff. I mean, it's the same fraud every time. It's subgroups. It's throwing out data that was there and now isn't there anymore. It's like scientific fraud, like through publications, or when we present the data it says X, when we published it said Y. They're just the same tropes you learn over and over again. The mechanism of action doesn't make sense. It wasn't really designed well as a drug. So it's a nice business, and I'd encourage people to go after it, because the arbitrage is there. It's not that hard to learn. It really is common sense. You don't have to be God's gift to biochemistry or anything. And it's much better than scratching off lotto tickets on these stocks trying to bet that they're going to go up. So anyway, I don't know. I am still looking for people. Peter, what's up?